There was a stretch of time when these quarterbacks weren't friends' names. They weren't placeholders. They weren't system guys. They were playoff starters. They were franchise answers. They were the reason teams believed their window was open. And somehow, they just slipped. Not because they collapsed, not because they were exposed, but because the NFL doesn't pause to remember the middle chapters. An MVP is on this list. A Super Bowl winning quarterback is on this list. And at least one of these names is going to make you stop and rethink what you thought you remembered. Marc Bulger's entire career lives in the shadow of something he didn't create. When he took over in St. Louis, the Rams weren't just a team. They were a phenomenon. The greatest show on turf had already burned through the league, and expectations never came down with it. Bulger wasn't supposed to replace Kurt Warner. He was supposed to survive the aftermath. A sixth-round pick in 2000, he didn't arrive with hype or patience, but by the mid-2000s, he was producing at a level that absolutely mattered. From 2003 to 2006, Bulger averaged over 4,000 passing yards per season, made 2 Pro Bowls, and in 2004 threw 41 touchdown passes, finishing second in MVP voting behind only Peyton Manning. That wasn't empty production, that was top-tier quarterback play. But here's where the story bends. The Rams were breaking down around him. The offensive line deteriorated. Hall of Fame weapons aged out. The coaching staff turned over repeatedly. And instead of separating Bulger's production from the collapse, history blended the two together. The team fell, and his name fell with it. There was no impulsion, no infamous moment, just fewer wins, and eventually, less conversation. Bulger didn't fail. He quietly kept a fading powerhouse competitive longer than most quarterbacks could have. And because that story doesn't come with fireworks, it doesn't get replayed. David Garrard never demanded attention, and that may be exactly why he lost it. A 4th-round pick in 2002, Garrard didn't arrive in Jacksonville with expectations. He built his career the opposite way most quarterbacks do, by eliminating mistakes instead of chasing highlights. And in 2007, he authored one of the most overlooked seasons of the decade. That year, Garrard led the Jaguars to an 11-5 record, threw 18 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, and posted a passer rating over 100. Numbers that, even today, put quarterbacks in elite company. Then came the playoffs. Jacksonville walked into Pittsburgh against a Steelers team that felt inevitable, and Garrard controlled the game, winning 31-29 in one of the most hostile environments in football. That kind of discipline wins playoff games. It just doesn't make commercials. Jacksonville was never framed as his team, and when the franchise reset, Garrard didn't linger in the conversation. He just vanished from it. But for a stretch, he was exactly the quarterback you want when everything gets uncontrollable. And that kind of reliability doesn't age well in highlight culture. Rich Gannon spent most of his career being told he wasn't the answer. Different teams, different systems, different chances that never quite stuck. And then, well into his late 30s, everything finally aligned. From 1999 to 2002 with the Raiders, Gannon became one of the most productive quarterbacks in football. In 2002, he won NFL MVP, led the league in passing yards, completions, and touchdowns, and guided the Oakland Raiders to a Super Bowl appearance. He made 4 straight Pro Bowls, something very few quarterbacks have ever done, especially that late in their careers. For a moment, he wasn't just elite, he was the benchmark. But football doesn't wait. The hits piled up, the injuries caught up, and when his body slowed down, the exit came almost instantly. There was no farewell tour, just dominance and then absence. Now, most fans associate Rich Gannon with the broadcast booth, not the stretch where the league couldn't keep up with him, which feels strange because for a brief window, the league revolved around him. Matt Schaub didn't feel temporary when the Houston finally found him. After years of searching, the Texans had a quarterback who ran their offense with precision. In 2009, Schaub led the entire NFL in passing yards, throwing for 4,770 yards and helped turn Houston into a legitimate contender. For a moment, the franchise felt stable. And then came one of the strangest stretches of any quarterback has ever had. 4 straight games, 4 interceptions returned for touchdowns. Same arm, same mechanics. But suddenly, every throw carried doubt. Schaub never stopped being capable. He never disappeared from the league. But once trust breaks at that level, it's almost impossible to rebuild, especially when the collapse is that visual. Brad Johnson did something most quarterbacks never do. He won a Super Bowl. In 2002, Johnson threw 22 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions, ranking among the league leaders in efficiency, and executed John Gruden's offense exactly as designed on a championship team. But when people remember that Buccaneers roster, the conversation immediately shifts to the defense, and understandably so. Johnson didn't dominate games, he controlled them. And in a league obsessed with dominance, control rarely gets remembered. Vince Young entered the league with gravity. As a rookie, he won Offensive Rookie of the Year, led multiple fourth-quarter comebacks, and finished with a winning record despite limited passing numbers. Late game magic, unscripted plays, a present defenses couldn't prepare for. Early on, it felt inevitable. But football doesn't just require talent, it requires alignment. And with Young, coaching tension, system fit, and confidence issues never stayed aligned long enough. His career became moments instead of momentum, which is unfortunate because for a brief period, he looked like the future arriving early. Jeff Garcia had one defining chapter. With San Francisco, he made 3 Pro Bowls and led playoff teams after Steve Young retired, an almost impossible task. But then the league moved on, and he came back. In Philadelphia, he stabilized the playoff team. In Tampa Bay, he led a division-winning season in 2007 and posted one of the best passer ratings of his career. Most quarterbacks don't get a second act. Garcia had multiple. Matt Cassel replaced Tom Brady, and in 2008, he went 11-5, throwing 21 touchdowns and leading New England to the playoffs. That season gets dismissed as system success, but winning without Tom Brady wasn't automatic, and Cassel proved that. His role gets minimized because of who came before him, but what he did still mattered. Daunte Culpepper looked where the position was headed. In 2004, he threw for 4,717 yards, 39 touchdowns, and finished second in MVP voting while almost adding nearly 500 rushing yards. Big arm, mobility, production that didn't look normal for the era. Then came the injury. What followed never quite matched what came before, and that's the version most people remember. Before a stretch, Culpepper wasn't chasing the future of the position, he was showing it. Jake Delhomme wasn't supposed to work. Undrafted, overlooked, thrown into the role. And then suddenly, he was leading Carolina to a Super Bowl appearance, throwing 6 touchdown passes in that playoff run, and building a reputation as one of the league's most fearless quarterbacks. Over time, the mistakes stacked up. Those are easier to replay than the moments that built the run. But for a period, Delhomme wasn't surviving in the league. He was leading it. The NFL doesn't slow down to remember. It replaces, it refreshes, it moves forward. And sometimes in that process, it forgets how much certain players mattered while they were here. If this list made you pause, even once, that's the point. Because none of these quarterbacks were footnotes. They were chapters. And if you disagree with who topped this list, that probably means you're remembering just a little too late.